Okay, so the next presenter is Jacqui Moore, who needs to be promoted to panelist. So Emily, or maybe, there she is. Hey, Jacqui. Are you here?
Hello.
There we go. Hi, Jacqui. How are you?
Good. How are you? My
Very
computer's
good.
just taking a minute to
Oh, that's all good.
convert from attendee to panelist. All right, there we go.
Very good. So we have Jacqui Moore. Jacqui is a Tableau social ambassador and the co-lead of the Boston Tableau user group. She's a co-lead of the SDG-Viz project, the Sustainable Development Goal Viz project, and a member of MAMSU Viz. And she is currently a business intelligence analyst at Red River and has previously held positions as a data visualization and analytics consultant and a Tableau community lead. Jacqui is passionate about data visualization, enabling others with Tableau and analytics, and fostering data communities and centers of excellence. And Jacqui will be talking about 3 approaches to beginning a DataViz project to all of us today. So welcome, Jacqui, and over to you.
All right. All right, and you can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you for the introduction. I'm going to repeat some of the stuff that you just said. My name is Jacqui Moore. I'm business intelligence at Red River. I focus on dashboard design. I also have some expertise in building internal communities and COEs. I've been using Tableau for about 8 years and I'm a social ambassador for the first time this year. I co-lead the Boston Tug and SDG Viz project. And I'm part of Mom2Viz. This is my 4-year-old future data rock star, and I'm married to Brian Moore, who is also a Tableau ambassador. There's a lot of Tableau in our house. Today, I'm presenting on a question that I think a lot of people struggle with, which is, I have a data set or I have an idea. Now, where do I start? And these are some of the approaches that I take based on the situation. To my mind, there's basically 3 approaches. You have a data-driven approach, an idea-driven approach, or a hybrid of the 2. So data-driven is where you have a data set and you know you're going to build a dashboard, but you have no idea or direction. This is a business setting. You have no requirements. You just have a data set and you know you want to do reporting on it. Idea-driven is where you have an idea or maybe requirements, but no data set, just directionally what you need to show. And then the hybrid approach would be where you have some data, you have a half-baked idea, or somebody's thrown some loose requirements at you, but you're going to need more to have a successful project. So I'll start with the data-driven approach. So I have the data set, I know I'm going to build a dashboard, but not much else. So I'm going to start by reviewing and exploring the data and see what information can be found in there. I'll take a look at the dimensions and measures. I'll look at the granularity. What's the finest level of detail in the data set? Am I dealing with raw numbers or are they aggregated? Are there averages or percentages that I need to watch out for if I'm going to further aggregate? Are there targets that I can set KPIs against? Is this data over time or is it a single point in time? If it's over time, what's the time range? What's the frequency? What am I looking at here? And then I'm going to explore a little further and start dropping some pills onto the canvas and see what values are there, how clean the data is, what's being measured, what are the ranges that I'm looking at, is the data good quality or will I need to cleanse it? And then I've got a good sense now of what kind of information is in there, then I'll start to conceptualize what I can do with this data. I'll drag out the dates, measures, do any trends appear? Is there anything interesting or outside of the norm? And I'll start to do Google searches on the topic, read articles, infographics, get some ideas. If this is a business dashboard, maybe I'm looking for other dashboards that have been done on the topic. And then I save my sources to cite later, especially if the work is in public. And then, looking at other graphics and articles can help form the idea and help get an understanding of what the data that I'm working with is about. And then finally, I'll start to wireframe and mock things up. It's useful to get early feedback here, especially in the business setting from your stakeholders or folks in the community if you're doing public work. So here's an example. I have the SDG Viz project data from the UN for goal 3.
Hey,
And
Jacqui,
yes.
I still see the where do I start slide. I think we're supposed to see something else.
Yeah. Did it get hung up?
Maybe try to reshare your screen.
Yeah. Are you seeing something different now?
At the moment, it still says that you started screen sharing, but I don't see a image yet.
And try to share again.
Same thing. Are you selecting the desktop or just an application?
I'm selecting a whole screen.
Okay.
You should see my screen. On my side, it says that I am screen sharing, so I don't have any indication that it's not working over here, but
Jacqui, if you have a link to your presentation, maybe you can just pop the link over to us and we can drive the presentation while you talk.
I don't have it uploaded anywhere right now.
Oh, darn. So much for that idea. Oh, these are the Zoom technical challenges.
There we go.
Okay.
So I'm seeing defining the 3 approaches.
Okay. And is it switching now?
Yes, yes, it is.
You're with me again? Okay.
Sweet.
All right. Sorry about that.
All good.
Okay. So I'll jump back in. So I have the SDG Viz project data from the UN for goal 3, and I start looking at this data set, and there's a ton of different metrics in there, but I need to focus on the story that's within one of them. So I'll start to look and see which of these are more complete over the years and throughout the different countries within the data set. Once I know what's more complete, then I can start to whittle it down. Then I start building some views to see if there's anything interesting. I noticed that only a handful of countries have had increasing maternal mortality ratio. And interestingly, the US is one of them, which was kind of surprising. So now I have my concept. And then I'm going to start to figure out how to show the story and layering and layout and design aspects and context and annotations. So this is kind of how I took it from a data set with no direction to a finished dashboard. And so explore the data, get to know it, see if there's anything interesting, and find a story. For the idea driven, this is where you have the idea or request, but you don't have any data set. So in the business realm, an idea might come from requirements of a stakeholder or a discussion that you're having with your colleagues, or something that you just think is missing from your existing dashboards. And then in the public realm, it could come from articles, books you read, discussions you've had, movies, sports, anything. And you just think, I wonder, or this is really interesting. And that's an idea. And then I just keep a list of these if I have a Viz block in the future. And then I have my ideation. So once I have the topic or idea, then I build upon that, explore the topic and get to know it better, search for design inspiration from an array of sources, consider what dimensions and measures that I'll need to tell the story that I want to tell, and then think about what is the most important aspect and to make sure that I have the data to support that. And then I do some sketching and wireframing. I still don't have any data at this stage, but it'll help solidify my thinking about what I'm going to be looking for. And then during my ideation process, I got a sense of some of the keywords for the topic and I used those keywords to start searching out data sets. So, use the keyword plus database, plus data set, plus CSV, et cetera, and you find the data. You can also make your own data with APIs and web scraping. And I'll share some of the resources that I use for these things too. And then you take what you found, and you go back to some of the questions that I talked about in the data-driven approach. We'll keep going back to those same questions anytime I start with a new data set. And then you may have to do this a few times until you find the right data. So an example of one of these is I'm reading the news during the election lead up, and I think voter participation is really, we're happy with 60%. It's really that low. So I Google it and I want to see over the years what that looks like and if it's changing. And so I find the voter participation data in several sources. And then I want to see, does that participation change at all based on whether the Democratic Party or the Republican Party were the winners that year? So I want to layer that in and I go out and I find that data as well. And then I take that data and I combine it and I build my viz, add context, and tell the story. So something sparked an idea. I tracked down the data, took the time to understand it, clean it, and combine it, and ended up with a dashboard showing how much of the population voted over the years and what that means in the grand scheme of the overall population voting for the elected president and participating in the democratic process. Now, the hybrid approach is, again, this is a kind of combination of the two, where you have a little bit of data and you have a half-baked idea, or in not really any requirements to build on. So I'll ideate and brainstorm. Was there a question that sparked this? Does the data set itself have anything that leads me down a direction? What additional data is needed to tell a cohesive story or to get any meaningful information out of the data? And then usually in this situation, you might have anecdotal or small data, you have partial data. And then I'll go out and find inspiration, identifying keywords, searching for articles and images on the topic, pulling from an array of sources as we build out the concept. And this will happen a lot, I think, in the business environment where there's an idea to do some reporting on a thing, and then you go out and see what other people have done in the area. And then I identify the keywords through that process and searching for the data set, making sure that it's reputable sources, and then reviewing and exploring the data again. An example of this is my project for the SDG Viz project, month 6, clean water and sanitation. So I have the data set, which has a number of measures and targets that are rolling into this overall goal. And as I'm exploring, I see that access to basic hand washing facilities is one of the metrics. And the SDG site, and we all know, but they highlight that basic hand washing is the most effective way to stop the spread of COVID-19. So now I'm curious, does the data showing that the availability of hand washing in an area correlate to the COVID rates in that country? Does the data actually reflect higher rates in the places lacking hand washing facilities? So I have the SDG data. Now I need to go out and get the data on COVID rates by country and combine those. And then I take a look and the data isn't really reflecting that. So now I need to figure out why it's not. And source some additional data. So does tourism play a factor? What about GDP? Are the rates of comorbidities, the age of the population, obesity, diabetes? Are the testing rates in these areas just lower? Do the demographics affect it? Does population density affect it? So I can start to layer in all of these things and try to find out. And so I wind up with this story that really started about access to hand washing and COVID and ended up exploring other things that are contributing to the spread of COVID as I explore. So you may take these approaches and then the questions might only get you so far and you're still stuck. Some other ways to help with the process is to add constraints. Ali Torbin's tweet here does a great job of illustrating why it's easier to execute on a project with constraints. It really can help you get closer to a good solution. Put anything on the canvas. So Neil Gaiman said that the only thing you can't fix is the perfection of a blank page. A blank canvas is scary. So make that canvas or piece of paper less intimidating by putting something on it. You'll iterate. What you do at first won't be in the end result, but doing something will help you get momentum and it'll solidify your idea. Getting interested in things. So if you wonder at something and then explore and research and talk to others about it, and you invite others to talk about it with you and get curious, you'll spark more ideas through your visualization or through conversation. And you can always reuse the data set. You can have multiple dashboards exploring the different parts of the same thing. I feel like I get inspiration like this all the time through some of the data fam chats that we have. And then seeking out inspiration. Kelly Martin in her Viz Candy blog made this point really well. She said your sources don't have to be in data visualization or dashboard world, and that's right on. Anything that you see trains your eye and builds your visual vocabulary. And the more you see, the more you can draw from later. A wide array of inspirations will make more unique and creative work. And I definitely recommend reading her blog post on this topic in particular, which we are fortunate to still have access to. So definitely go out and take a look at that. So I've put up a list of some of the places to look for inspiration, Tableau Public, but also Dribble, Behance, Pinterest, ads, websites, packaging, anything really. And then knowing what charts are available and reminding yourself of what's out there. You can do Andy Kriebel's Visual Vocabulary is a good place to take a look, DataViz project, and then reading books on DataViz to be familiar with the best practices and what's out there in the history and the reasons will all make your ideation processes go a little smoother. There's a number of places to get data. There's a lot of open governmental data. Data.world and Kaggle are great places to look for other types of data. And then Google search, as long as you're paying attention to the quality of the data, you can find data sets on pretty much anything that way as well. Or look for APIs or use web scraping to make your own data sets. Layouts and backgrounds are, a lot of people use PowerPoint. Figma is a free tool that's available and popular. Adobe Illustrator is also a tool that you can use. Icons are a great way to get some quick context into your dashboard. They help guide the eye and give some quick context if they're used well. And there's several places to get those that are free or free with citation, or you can pay for subscriptions. Um, and then photos and your backgrounds or your dashboards from places like Unsplash, Pixabay. Just looking for things that have Creative Commons licenses or are free to use with citation. There's a ton of resources out there. The most important thing is to cite your sources for data, images, icons, and your inspiration, and then share your work and thank the people who contributed. So there are great presentations out there that go way more in depth on any of the areas that I talk to, but I hope that this helps give a jumping off point for some people. So thank you. And if there's any questions, I'll take them now.
Cool. Thanks, Jacqui. I think that's like where I'm often stuck is just like, oh, I want to visualize something, but don't know how or how to approach it. And I think those are like an interesting take on how you get started and how you come up with the ideas, and the dashboards that you showed were obviously worked really well, and you can see that there was a lot of work that went into it. You talked a lot about reputable sources, and I was just wondering sort of how you determine what a reputable source is, and if you do any sort of stress testing after you found one to see if the data actually represents what they claim it does, or if anything's missing or that sort of thing.
I'm really looking in most cases for things from the primary source as much as possible, especially, most of my vises right now have to do with the SDG Viz project. So it's all things that are tracked by a lot of different organizations, but I'm really looking for things that are coming directly from the UN or the World Bank or got open data websites on the government. If I'm interested in a topic, I might find that, you know, somebody's gathered some data on it, but it's just on the website of an organization that I can't find good information on whether they are a good organization or they're biased. So I'm just trying to find the most primary source information that I can, and using that to help me avoid introducing some additional bias into the data from organizations that might have a particular angle on something rather than just purely reporting the information.
Cool. There's one question in the chat. I'm wondering how you did the rounded corners on one of the vises. The person thinks it's a picture, but would like to know how to do it, and if there's a blog post or something that explains that.
They are, all of my backgrounds are done right now in PowerPoint. So those are PowerPoint shapes and then exported as a ping file to put behind the floating containers. So the rounded corners are all coming from PowerPoint.
Cool. I think that's it with questions from the community. Thank you so much for sharing your process with us and sharing how other people can approach their dashboards and create new visualizations.
All right. Thank you.
We